So, Tenny-Brittian here. This is the last week for spiritual development, one of the courses in the ministry training program of Phillips Theological Seminary. This week really is merely a week of synthesis, reflecting on what you've learned, a chance to ask questions that you may have. It's the time to really just pull it all together. The only question I think that you're going to have this week is, what are your questions? You've been doing such a great job pulling from within you, trying different spiritual practices. One of the cautions I will tell you is how easy it is to go back to what works for us when we find something we're trying isn't quite working the way it should be or it could be. So when you're trying out new spiritual practices, do think about trying to stay with it. If it's at all possible, try staying with it for a little while. If it's not working for you after 2 or 3 weeks, then switch over or switch back. Don't beat yourself up. If a practice is not working for you, I don't know, maybe it's along the lines of not eating baby food, but feeding a baby food. You might try the carrots and they cannot stand the carrots and they spit them back at you. But try the carrots 4 or 5 weeks, maybe 6 weeks later, and they love carrots. I wouldn't say, okay, journaling doesn't work for you. I can say this because it does not overall work for me. So I'm not saying journaling doesn't work for you. Come back and try it again in 6 weeks. Maybe 6 months, maybe a year, maybe 6 years. For me, journaling didn't work for me for a long time. And then I was in a group where I had to journal. It was really a requirement for the group that I was in. And I found that I was able to journal, that not easily at first, didn't like it for the longest time, but then I began to see what was coming out of me and how that at that point in my life was a very important discipline. Every now and again I find myself needing to journal, and did you hear that? I need to journal. Something within my spirit calls me to journal. That lasts a little while, and then I either try another habit or I go back to a habit that's been working for me. I also will use, and I keep saying habit, I really mean practice. I have my fallback practices that particularly when times are tough, when pieces may be up in the air, when there's a threat of something coming up in the air, I know going up in the air, or maybe it's coming down from the air, that I need to dig in. I need to ground in with what resonates so well with my soul. Keep all of that in mind. You might ask, well, why try other practices? Well, we try other practices because there might be something out there that works better for us, or something at that moment will work better for us. If you're using a practice, if a particular practice has really become a habit for you, and you're trying something new, is something different, don't be afraid to stop using your other habit for a while to try this new one, but don't beat yourself up if this isn't the one that's working for you. I guess what I'm really trying to say is keep an open mind, because God will talk to us and work with us in different ways. And as I'm saying that, I'm thinking as well, because your habit of long time is not working for you at the moment, it may be because something within you is fighting back, is pushing back against learning, against something God is trying to say to you, against something God is trying to do in you in that particular moment. I've said this before. I know this sounds like a unapologetic advertisement for the leader and what is it, the education and leader development class that I teach here with the ministry training program in Phillips Seminary. We're going to cover a lot more of that in depth. We're really in depth. We're really going to talk about how to move where you are, how to help people move from where they are and grow into those that are going and showing and being on for God, right? To more fully moving into being the people that God has created them, moving into who God has created us to be. Again, want to bring home that faith development and spiritual development are not one and the same, but they are very closely, well, no, not very closely. They are definitely correlated. And there's a correlation between the two of those. And you can't talk about faith development without talking about spiritual development. Some people may disagree with that. That has been our tradition, our history in both the church, Big C church, but also in the academy. And I really want to say that that one of the reasons Jim Fowler, why am I saying that? Jim Fowler is so important is because he really brought out and started that writing and that studying in a larger way what those differences can be. And you find in him that raw searching and searchingness that you wouldn't have seen otherwise. And where he gets maybe convoluted, it's because he's still trying to put it together and figure it out. Do know that he was an extremely humble man, well liked, well admired by his colleagues and by his students, at least those at Emory University. Come back every now and again and give him a read. This was the first time I had read him in a long time. We'll leave it at that. And to see new insights. Also, a thank you to you for affording me those insights and helping me to wrestle with that, helping me to wrestle with where I am in my stages of faith, where I am in my spiritual journey, some of the work that needs to come next for me or could possibly come next for me. Just keep it out there. Last but not least, I think, is talking about your final paper and to look at someone who is in your church, your congregation, where you worship. Perhaps it's where you lead, or perhaps it's even where you pastor. Don't tell them that you are doing this. I just want you to I want you from afar to watch and see what I'm wanting you to do. I'm wanting to help you look at observing people. Doing that, where might they be? It's not science, okay? It's just out there, and you're trying to develop your own senses and be humble about that. Use what Fowler says. Bring in our other pieces that you've said. We want to look at them both in faith and in their spirituality, and how, as leaders in their life, or potential leaders in their life, right? How we would help them to go and to grow. Use them not really as a test case, but use them as an example. So I want to know a little bit about them. I want to know how they participate in the church, how you view them. Maybe you have a sense of how they view themselves. And if you think about it as kind of a doctor, right, that you're doing maybe a diagnosis, but you're doing a checkup. How about that? Without interacting with them. And then you're going to do a bit of a diagnosis, but more than that, what I really want you to do is consider a prescription. How could you help this person grow into the next stages of their lives? I know that so much of the way we grow is through conflict and crises. Again, we're going to talk more about that in an education course. And we are not going to go cause crises for them. We're not going to go and help them have a crisis. We're not going to be standing in the wings looking for their crisis. None of that. So that's not part of the prescription. What we want to do is look at what we can work with, what we might be able to help, maybe what is gone on in their life. That might be a piece. Maybe somebody is stuck in their spirituality or in their faith development because of a crisis. I can tell you, I know very, very closely and personally a young couple who lost their daughter due to a suicide, and that as you can imagine really put them in the place of questioning God, wondering, turning to psychics and different people trying to hold on to her. Their faith really hit this place of I just don't know, or I can't know, or I don't want to know. How could a God do that? And so the question then would be, how would you come alongside of them if you were their pastor or their elder or the person that Stephen minister, well, not a Stephen minister because that ministry is different, but if you were the person who God tapped or the church had asked to be there to walk with them, what might you be listening for? What might you be seeing that might help them just walk a little farther along? It's easy to say, well, I would just tell them that. No, this isn't telling them. A prescription is bigger than that. It's watching for some movements. It's saying, maybe this is a piece, and maybe if I invited them to a small group, maybe if I asked them to pray, maybe this type of prayer would be more conducive and more appropriate, more helpful to them in this place in time of their life. Those are the kind of thoughts I want you to be thinking, and of course they're going to be specific for that particular person, and none of this may have anything to do with the person that you're observing. That's the challenge, right? It's very personalized. I can't tell you this is how you would do it in this situation. This is what would need to be. I want to see what you would do, what you would think. And I'm going to come back to you with some questions about that. Maybe, not maybe, I'm sure because of who I am, with some potential suggestions that you could that you might try in those situations. When I learned coaching, working on my doctorate, did some classes in coaching, and we had to keep doing case studies. So we were talking about, this is how I would walk farther or further with this person. These are some of the questions I might ask. These are some of the exercises that we might use. And then my professors were able to come back and say, had you thought about this? Or what about that? Or do you really think that that might be the place and the time? That's what I want to get to share with you, to pass on, which is part of leadership and teaching anyways, isn't it? To pass on that which we have received. Okay, I've said enough. I've had a great time with you, being challenged by you, growing because of you, hopefully growing with you in some ways. I look forward to getting to meet those of you I've never met face to face. I look forward to meeting you someplace, somewhere. If we are ever in that same place, please come and say hello. I will look forward to that. In the meantime, I'm going to see you in the next few hours on the discussion forum. I look forward to that and to getting to read your final assignments. Thank you. Have a great week. Bye-bye.